So just a couple, hi everybody. So just as we're starting here at 8, welcome. And it's January 8th, 8 in the morning here in Vancouver, in BC, I should say. I'm here in Nelson. So my name is Matthew Richards. I'm just sort of introducing this a little bit. So a few things that are going to be a little bit different for the classes that I'll be doing on Saturdays. Now, of course, I'm going to be recording, but I am going to be, just an FYI, uploading these onto YouTube. The reason being is I've got the cheap Zoom subscription, which means I can only have 3 of these recorded, then I have to start deleting them. So what happens is all these classes end up being, not that they're stellar classes that have to be preserved at the Smithsonian or anything like that, but if people want to listen to older classes or have access to the materials, particularly if we're starting to work on more substantive material now, of course, I've just been deleting everything. So there's no way of having access to everything. So I just thought all you're going to see in the Zoom video is me talking anyway. It's decidedly very, very low budget. I have no interest in being a Instagram or YouTube influencer with the Dharma. So it's just going to be us with their class here. So if I have it, it's, these 1-hour classes I'm just going to upload them to a YouTube channel. I'm just sort of started already. And then you'll have access to particularly the last 15 minutes of every class where we're going over new material and Buddhist philosophy and so forth, and theory and practice. So for instance, if you don't want to, this is going to be recording, no one's going to know, but I'm just saying if you want to ask a question or something and don't want to be seen, just have your camera off. It's totally cool. So the format will be as we've been doing the last, however long I've been doing this. It's all sort of a blur with COVID. We're going to do, most of the class will be doing meditation like we always do. Lama Chopa or again in Lagema, sometimes Jorcho, sometimes a combination of the two. And then the last 15 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes, I'll present a little bit in a meditative context. So we'll be meditating, but I'll give some teachings on Dharma teachings at that time. And then there's a chance when we end at 8, if anyone has any questions, they can ask. If people have to go, that's good too. If people want to stay on a few minutes longer for questions, that's great. So we'll end. And if you have a question, just say, hey, Matthew, I have a question on the material or whatever. Of course, this class will continue, it's an ongoing course. So if you go home or you're at home and you think more and more about the class and you decide that you have questions, you can bring them up next week. For instance, at the end of class, you can say, hey, by the way, last week you said X, Y, and Z, or we did X, Y, and Z or whatever. I have a question about it, We can look at it that way. Or of course, always via text or email if you would like. Okay, great. So that's that to start. Today basically marks the first class of about 6. I'm just sort of giving the background of what I'm doing here. So class of about 6 in sort of a group, I guess by theme on the 3 principal paths. So what I've decided to do is about 20 years ago, if some people might have studied the Asian Classic Institutes or Geshe Michael Roach or whatever, I know Ben Christensen is planning on teaching this more and more. I really, really recommend you study with him. He's one of my teachers. He's absolutely fantastic and wants to go into more detail. I'm going to be presenting some of the ideas here, but in a very sort of meditative, yogic, and cursory way. So if you want the full, this is your appetizer. If you want the full meal, so to speak, get a hold of Ben, attend his classes and maybe study with him. But I really found that a lot of the content in the, I think it's the original 15 Asian Classics Institute courses, which are free online, are very, very good in presenting the sutric teachings in the Gelugpa tradition. And in particular, when you get to the higher level classes in there, the presentation, emptiness and karma is such that they really, really provide a good understanding of how Tantra works. So there's sutra teachings, but in the end, they're super, super helpful for your tantric practice, in particular for your highest yoga tantra practice. And this ends up, for the most part, really illustrating the thing that Tsongkhapa, in founding our tradition back in the 1400s, wanted to sort of forward, I guess, or present to everybody in Tibet at the time, is what he called the unity of Sutra and Tantra. So with Rinpoche 25 years ago, if you remember, we had the USAT, Union of Sutra and Tantra teachings. So a Fatisha who brought Buddhism in Tibet in the Sarma sort of second wave translation movement in the 11th century, if he was the one to really show the unity of vast and profound paths, the unity of the Buddha nature teachings from Asanga and Buddha Maitreya and Yogacara teachings, mixing it with the more sort of critical or negative teachings on emptiness, so to speak, from Nagarjuna. And people thought one's more of a positive doctrine where you're making claims or statements about things. The other is more of a negative doctrine where you're stripping things away. How do they go together? One's kind of taking away and one's building up. And Atisha shows that when you practice them together, they fit perfectly together. Tsongkhapa did the same thing about 400 years later, where he was like, how do we combine Sutra and Tantra? They seem so different. You know, one's all intellectual, one's, more sort of conceptual kinds of meditations. The other one's very sort of can be actually antinomian a little bit and a little bit non-conceptual, a little bit weird. How do these go together? Well, basically, by once you understand emptiness is expressed through dependent arising and emptiness and karma, you will see that Sutra and Tantra go together perfectly. So if you do your Sutra practice properly, and understand what the sutric teachings are trying to tell you in terms of the unity of karma and emptiness, you will start getting tantric realizations automatically from that, even before you start practicing Tantra. You will start to sort of build the ground. You'll even start, in some ways, preparing the way for generations or Krim realizations without even doing highest yoga tantra. So once you start doing highest yoga tantra, it'll be very, very easy. Things will come together just as a whole. So I really believe in the content of these classes. So rather than teach lists, go through this whole kind of rigmarole, with all these really, really long classes, what I'm just doing is distilling everything down, all these 15 classes, into sort of little bite-sized chunks that we can meditate on, starting class 1 going up to class 15. I'm going to skip a bunch of them. I'm not going to do the classes on debate, for instance. I don't feel that those are necessary. One of my teachers, Genlosun Chöpo, thought that was, in this day and age, just not very helpful for a lot of people. So there's about 2 classes out of the 15 we're not going to do. I'm not going to do, Ben's doing them far better than I am, the Shantideva classes. I'm going to skip, there's 3 whole courses on that. So basically, I'm going to pick sort of the greatest hits of the full coursework of Asian Classics Institute and present them. So the first module we'll be doing is 6 Saturdays on the 3 principal paths of renunciation, Bodhicitta and Wisdom, realizing emptiness. Then we'll be going on to Buddha nature and refuge teachings after that. After that, then, for instance, it's going to be some low rig meditation and meditation on shamatha, how to meditate. Some mind and mental factors teaching, in particular, proof of past lives, that we'll get onto. Is very, very short. And then I'd like to spend time, probably it'll be in the fall next, or what, I mean, it depends how long we keep going here, but 2 full classes on Abhidharma Kosha and Diamond Cutter Sutra on karma. So it's going to be a lot of stuff on that, but that's the bulk of the work. And then after that, there's a few courses on Abhidharma Kosha, Lojong, for instance, just a little bit. And then finally, the one that I'd like to teach on is the mind-only teachings Tsongkhapa gave towards the end of his life, and Essence of True Eloquence. So that's kind of a lot. This is kind of like where we're going with the overall content of sort of the coursework on Saturdays. Just so you know, that's kind of the overall map. And thank you very much for coming. So let's get started. And again, at any time you can interrupt with a question or a comment or whatever. So let's just, if everyone can just sort of relax here, and I'll start with reciting the Heart Sutra for us. If I can find it here, where is my Heart Sutra? Here we go. Okay. Wait a minute. It's just, here it is here. I was going to say it has disappeared from my library. Okay. Okay, homage to the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir in Masvalters Mountain, near the great assembly of monks and the great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection of wisdom. looking perfectly at the also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, their great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter in the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence, form is empty and emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They're not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element in mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing on and beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete, but is in the state of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, mantra perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, unsurpassed mantra, equal and unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all sufferings, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. Mantra perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration, said to Spirit Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, O Sadhanams, it is like that. Since it's like that, just as you revealed in that way, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, Spirit Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Just 7 times chanting the Prajnaparamita Emptiness Mantra. Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. 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 Okay, sort of clearing everything out with emptiness. So let's just take a moment to visualize ourselves in a wide open space. Brown like lapis lazuli, warm, soft, easy to touch, easy to sit on. Space is open as far as the eye can see. And above us, a dome of a beautiful blue, cloudless sky. luminous summer sky. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings. So let's just take a moment to visualize on our left our mother, representing the feminine side of our body and energies. So our mom on our left and our father on our right. Can visualize around us the people closest to us in this life, both good and bad. So we can think the people that love us the most and our support we're connected to behind us is support. And people in front of us that we have issues with, maybe a little bit problematic relationships and so forth. We can feel that they're sitting in front of us as objects of our compassion and healing energy and so forth. And concentric circles around them, moving out to the horizon in all directions, are all sentient beings. So we can feel that people from all over the world, all different backgrounds, countries, and places are here with us, without exception. We can feel that all animals from different ecosystems, places are here with us. And different sort of celestial beings, gods and demigods. Countless spirit beings from different spirit realms, astral realms, so forth. Sort of places between the six realms, you could argue, in and out of the six realms. And then countless beings of lower states of rebirth, hungry ghosts and beings in hell realms. So when you look around, as far as the eye can see, countless sentient beings, all sort of happy and ready to meditate with us. So in the sky above us, let's visualize, we'll do as much as we can here, of the Lama Chopa refuge tree. So out of Lake Manasarovar, it's a beautiful, beautiful tree, like a big maple tree, oak or ash tree, and all made out of pure light or energy. So it's kind of translucent, you can see through it. So it's like a huge screen or projection or kind of hologram in front of all of us here, us and all sentient beings seated in our space. Well, beautiful sort of world tree uniting lower realm, middle realm, and upper realm. And like Bob Thurman says, it's sort of a Christmas tree with different ornaments. So in the center, like a big harvest moon, we're going to visualize the central figure of Losang Tubei Dorje-chan, surrounded by all the other Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yidams, Arhats, Dakinis, Dharma protectors, all lineage gurus, and so forth, kind of like different constellations or other ornaments in the tree. So focusing on the central figure, Tsongkhapa, as Losang Tubei Dorje-chan, the unity of three figures, or three Buddhas, three beings, holy beings. Verse 1 is Tsongkhapa on a lion throne, multicolored lotus, sun and moon seat. And he's in lotus position in the three robes of a monk, wearing a yellow pennant's cap. And his left hand supports a begging bowl at his lap, medicinal nectar, and right hand is in the mudra of teaching, so the index fingers touching the thumb at his heart, holding the stem of a white lotus that blossoms around his right ear. Now at his heart, we can visualize it be the size, if it was our size, of a big apple, is Buddha Shakyamuni, Tubang being a name of the Buddha. And he's in the form we usually visualize him as, a beautiful golden energy body, three robes of a monk, lotus position, holding a begging bowl in his left hand as well, with medicinal nectar. And right hand is in the subduing mudra, so palm open, touching the earth. So that he has subdued all his delusions and is like a foe destroyer, so to speak. He's a Buddha, but he's overcome all his negativities. And then just like I said, it's like opening those Russian dolls, so they keep going down to smaller and smaller. We have the final figure at Buddha's heart, Dorje-chan, holder of the Vajra, or Vajradhara, or holder of the diamond, you could say. And it's Vajradhara and Vajradhatu Ishvari, so the divine couple, kind of like yin and yang, father and mother. And they have beautiful sapphire blue energy bodies wearing crowns and sexual embrace. So Vajradhara is in lotus position. And Vajradhatushvari, she is the same color, and she's straddling him with her legs around him, and she's got her arms around his neck. He holds a Dorjeen bell, so obviously bell on his left, Dorjeen is right. She's got a skull cup with medicinal nectar in her left and a curved chopping knife in her right. They wear silks and beautiful bracelets and necklaces and so forth, and are young and beautiful and in loving embrace. And we can even visualize, if your mind can go sort of zoom in on the detail there, between them is a blue hum letter, H-U-M, if you want to do it in English, otherwise a Tibetan letter representing the enlightened mind. And that can be sort of softly emanating rainbow light. So tracking outward, back looking at the tree, it's taking up the whole sky here in front of us, above and in front. Central figure there. Now on our left or his right is the Buddha of love and kindness, Maitreya, surrounded by all men and women, all sort of teachers for the last 2,500 years that have taught the vast path of Buddhist teachings on bodhicitta, on compassion, and in particular mind-only school of sort of emptiness. So we can feel that Asanga, Vasubandhu, Sir Lingpa, all these great gurus are up there around Buddha Maitreya. Maitreya is in Bodhisattva form, lotus position, wearing a crown and robes. He has a golden color, sort of an orangey golden color. And he's has the turning the wheel of Dharma mudra at his heart. So both hands, the index fingers touching the thumbs, fingers are out, holding two white lotuses that blossom around his ears. So that's the compassion side. On our right, or Tsongkhapa's left, is the wisdom side, the profound path gurus. So we can visualize, in this case, Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri, and he's in Bodhisattva form. So he looks the same as Maitreya in this particular image. So he's again golden, sort of orangey golden body, lotus position, and turning the wheel mudra dharma at his heart, holding two white lotuses at the ears. And around him, again, are all men and women, all people that have taught the wisdom teachings, the profound path teaching, wisdom realizing emptiness teachings. So in particular, the middle way or Madhyamika school. So we can feel that Nagarjuna is here, great Saint Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Aryadeva, Buddha Palita, Nagabodhi, and so forth. They're all around Manjushri. Now, in front of Tsongkhapa, we can visualize our main teachers of this life, in particular, our root teacher. And we can sort of put in there any teacher that has taught you Dharma in the past, or any kind of basically spiritual teachings or personal growth, you could sort of argue. So even people on the Oprah Book of the Month Club, or what I'm being sort of jokey here, but technically anyone, including people that have taught you to read or write, there's sort of a whole group of people in this life whose kindness have given you the tools and resources to end up where you are right now studying the Dharma. So we can feel that they're all manifestations of our root teacher, and basically manifestations of the Buddhas themselves. They're all in front of Tsongkhapa in the tree. And then, like bleachers at a stadium, you're at a big football stadium or hockey stadium or so forth. So they're all sort of in lines coming in the tree sort of towards us, stacked up that way. We can feel all other Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yidams, Arhats, and Dakinis, and protectors. So we can feel that the Buddhas of the four classes of Tantra are here. So big ones like Goy Samaja, Haruka, Yamantaka, Havajra, and so forth. Kriya Tantra deities like Tara and Manjushri and Chenrezig and Vajrapani and so forth. We can feel that the 1,000 Buddhas of this aeon are with us, 16 Arhats, 16 offering goddesses, Dakinis of 24 places, all different Dharmapala protective Buddhas, Imam Paul Lamo, Chamsing, Kalarupa, and so forth, Vaishravana, they're all here with us. So it's quite a busy, beautiful, and refuge tree here that we're visualizing, all different energies and colors shining. And now finally, let's just visualize above Tsongkhapa, the four sort of five streams of lineages going into his crown, into Loseng Tube Dorjichang, the central figure. So they're almost kind of like totem poles going up, or streams of energy coming down into him. So on our left or his right, we can visualize first one being Goya Samaja, the Buddha of power, the Anuttara Yoga version of Vajrapani. He has 6 arms in lotus position in sexual embrace with his 6-arm consort. Beautiful sort of dark blue color, 3 faces, holding wonderful ornaments. Not too familiar with that Tantra, I don't do it, so I can't give all the details, but you can look them up yourself. And so Goya Samaj is at top with all the teachers that have taught that Tantra going right down into Tsongkhapa. Next one over is Buddha Haruka. So we can just visualize 2-arm Haruka, blue Buddha standing up, right, with red Vajragini straddling him with her arms around his hips. Her legs around his hips and her arms around his neck. This Buddha of compassion, highest yoga tantra version of Avalokiteshvara, and all the teachers that have taught Ruka and Vajrayini practice, going down sort of as a lineage into Tsongkhapa. Now, the Kadam emanation scripture, the true Mahamudra teachings, emptiness teachings in the Gelugpa tradition, symbolized by Manjushri. So it's actually Vajradhara we can have up top, just solo Vajradhara, holding a dorje and bell. And then Manjushri being golden body, holding a flaming sword with his right hand over his head, and left hand is Tichu Mudra, holding a white lotus with the Prajnaparamita text at his left shoulder here. So there's a whole sort of line of Manjushris going into Tsongkhapa, representing this sort of visionary lineage. Next one over, Atisha, being the Bengali amazing Lama who brought Tibet the teachings from the Nalanda school and so forth in the 11th century. And he's wearing 3 robes of a monk in the holding the turning wheel of Dharma Mudra at his heart. And just feel all the different teachers coming down from him. This is the 16th heart drop of the Kadampas, all the different Kriya Tantra initiations and commentaries that Atisha gave. And finally, Yamantaka, Buddha of wisdom. So a 2-arm Yamantaka holding a curved knife in his right hand, skull cup in his left. Beautiful sort of bull or buffalo head there. All the different teachers that have taught those teachings coming down to Tsongkhapa. So my goodness, we have just a huge, beautiful refuge tree here with all these beings. So taking refuge from our heart, we can say, I and all sentient beings into each even light and go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to each even light and go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to each even go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Generating our motivation, bodhicitta. Everything we're doing here is for the enlightenment of all beings. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. White lights and nectars are now coming down to purify us for our refuge practice. Again, sort of to help us generate true refuge. Refugeless refuge. What the true refuge we're taking refuge in is emptiness. It's basically that we can't take refuge in anything, that everything's a projection of our mind. And everything is impermanent, these kinds of things. But in a lot of ways, what we take refuge in, of course, if everything is empty and impermanent, then everything is plastic, everything is possible. So we're taking refuge in sort of our infinite Buddha capacity to get enlightened, to change things up, not to suffer, but to find bliss and joy in our lives and for all sentient beings. And we can, because everything's empty. There's nothing stopping us from achieving that divine goal. So having that as our intention for us and all sentient beings. Beautiful white lights coming down, purifying all the beings around us. All their negativity, all leaving them like black smoke and tar and soot and ashes. And ourselves, we can just feel it's white light and nectar going to the crown of our head, flushing all that negativity out, making us crystal clear, It's like you've got a dirty crystal wine glass and you put it in sort of detergent, pull it out, and it's crystal right out of the dishwasher. We can feel that our mind, our speech and body, our body, subtle body, and mind, all these things are all crystal clear now. Now golden light's coming down, empowerment, spiritual power energy to generate true refuge. And golden nectar as well, filling ourselves up, just like filling up a glass with orange juice or something. All this empowerment energy, being full of spiritual qualities, realizing the grounds and paths of Sutra and Tantra and so forth. Generating the four measurable thoughts: measurable love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So just feel that this sort of golden light's coming down like a big waterfall into us, into our heart, all going out in all directions, sort of a big 360 bubble of energy going out, giving all sentient beings around us love, which means wanting them to be happy, giving them compassion, not wanting them to suffer, giving them the joy, in particular joy of nirvana, which is sort of everlasting bliss, bliss and joy, creative power to sort of share that with others. And equanimity, finally being able to share sort of this moderate mind that's beyond sort of our negative reactive judging. So we can feel it's beyond anger and attachment. So we have sort of this warm, caring, open, friendly attitude towards all beings. Now let's just do the 7 limbs. We're running a little late because I spent about 15 minutes talking, so we are not going to be able to do the full Lama Chopa Puja today. We're just going to do sort of a very stripped down version of it here, just in the visualization. So we can do the next thing, which is 7 limb practice, which is making our Buddhist practice Buddhist in sort of a formal way. So first of all, prostrations, showing signs of devotion and respect to the merit field. That we're doing full-length prostrations here, singing praises. Our mind is totally devoted, showing signs of respect to sort of our highest potential, Buddha nature in ourselves, and embodied in the holy beings in front of us. Offerings. So from our heart, we can visualize that we're making offerings to the refuge tree. So just like Samantabhadra, I always like doing ones where we can visualize that we're offering billions of flowers, like cherry blossom petals or gardens, fields of wildflowers in the mountains. Even just going to a flower store and just seeing beautiful bouquets and so forth, just in all directions. Or you can visualize making light offerings representing Dharmakaya mind, or your inner wisdom realizing emptiness, which is even probably more profound and powerful, more merit. So almost like if you could visualize billions of butter lamps or candles or Japanese lanterns in all directions, offering to the merit field here. Compassion and rejoicing. So confessing our negativities. This is the new year. So we just have to feel that in our Dharma practice, the same thing. We have New Year's resolutions that we're going to try to keep our vows and commitments and precepts as purely as we can. And the bad habits we all have, the character flaws, sort of our karmic profile of negativity, so to speak, that's sometimes uniquely ours. We're going to just promise in front of the Buddhas here and all sentient beings that we're always going to be working on this in a very, very sincere way, letting go of our bad habits, our bad reactions and judgments and so forth, purifying all the negative stains in us, letting it all go and becoming our absolute best selves in the Dharma. So as Rinpoche says, like declaration, it's basically having everyone hold you accountable, sort of being and saying in front of the Buddha, sort of standing up and saying that you promise to do better here, that they're all kind of calling you out on your bad behavior, that, you know, you have to let go of all this stuff if you want to get enlightened. So here we are on the path to perfection, doing our best, working on this. And rejoicing on the flip side of that is rejoicing on even trying to be a good person, trying to be on the path of the Dharma here, trying to get enlightened. Just think of all the sort of little virtues and good things that we do, as well as all the beings around the world doing good things at this moment, and rejoicing in that, being very, very happy. We always talk about negative stuff, politics, turn the news, everyone's always angry and fighting and negative, and people are always noticing the bad things, but we oftentimes don't stop to notice all the good deeds that people do, even just smiling and saying hi, holding the door for people, caring for people. So we rejoice in all that. It's a way of opening our hearts. Asking the Buddhists to stay and to teach. So just from our hearts, we can sort of send out up to the merit field, beautiful white lion throne, dissolves into Tsongkhapa's lion throne in the tree, as well as a 8-spoked golden Dharma chakra, Dharma wheel. We're saying, please always stay with us. Please always teach the Dharma. Please always guide us in a personal way. May we take all these teachings and put them into practice as personal advice. And the only way we can do that is to have our Dharma coach, our teachers and the Buddhas in our life coaching us. It's kind of like a fitness instructor we've paid for or whatever, or just our own sort of counselor, someone there with us at each step of the way, helping us, guiding us, leading us. And finally, dedicating everything we're doing here this morning for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Holding in our hearts the mandala here, purified universe in our hands. Can be sort of the Vedic universe with Mount Meher and the 4 continents, 8 subcontinents, all perfect things, or just sort of visualizing that you're sort of holding a whole beautiful, purified universe. All beautiful things producing bliss. So we can think of, like flowers and food and sunsets and amazing things. Even we've seen in our own life, collecting all this together, imagining that the whole world is pure and beautiful, which it is. And offering this up to the merit field here, to Losang Tube Dorjichang and all the Buddhas and light beings. So we go the ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, the great mountain, 4 lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land, and offer thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. I send forth this jeweled mantle to you, precious teachers. Om Madam Guru Radha Mandala Kamyoti Amin. Upon saying that, golden lights and nectars are now coming down again, giving us blessings or energy. It feels just like you're out for a hike, it's cloudy and all this, the sun starts coming out of the clouds here, shining down big sunbeams on us. Blessing us all sentient beings around us, receiving all sort of golden light and nectar and energy. Now, we can just sort of make a request here. Please grant us your blessings, and we do the absorption. So as for meditating, it's a beautiful sort of soft golden light sunlights coming, all the sort of merit field now of the refuge tree starts melting into golden light. So kind of like an image, it starts to fade. So we can feel that Lake Manasarovar and the wisdom trees start melting into light, sort of gradually moving inwards, dissolving into the beings. So it's like the Christmas tree dissolves into its ornaments, and only the ornaments are kind of like floating in the sky. The tree dissolves into all the light beings. So first of all, going inwards, we can just feel in front all the different Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so forth start melting upwards and into the tantric deities, and then into our root teachers of this life, like our teacher's life, in particular, root guru. And they melt into golden light and dissolve into Tsongkhapa. We can now think on either side the lineage gurus of the compassion path, fast path, and lineage gurus of the wisdom, or profound path, melt into Maitreya and Manjushri respectively, and they sort of become golden balls of light, and then sort of melt inwards, sort of fly, sort of move inwards and melt into Tsongkhapa. And finally, the 5 lineages, kind of like the 5 totem poles on top of Tsongkhapa, of all the different higher tantric lineages like Goisamaja, Haruka, and Yamantaka, and so forth. They all start to dissolve into golden light, sort of move downwards and dissolve into Tsongkhapa. So now it was just him, the central figure, like a beautiful moon in the sky, or a sun in the sky, if you're sort of like that image. Summer day, a blue sky with 12 o'clock noon, beautiful sun on top. Similar thing. So now even Tsongkhapa starts to melt into golden light and dissolve inwards into Buddha Shakyamuni. So we can feel Tsongkhapa is representing sort of the Vinaya path, or path of being a good ordained person, which means us observing all of our vows and precepts, particularly pratimoksha precepts and so forth, generating sort of the sincere moral discipline that we have in our lives, in sincere renunciation. That sort of goes, so we're kind of upping the dose here. We're gathering everything together like a beautiful, big, powerful medicine. So the first one, this first energy goes into Buddha Shakyamuni now. And Buddha Shakyamuni starts sort of glowing into golden light. And then he melts into the divine couple, Vajra and Vajradhatushvari. So we can feel that Buddha Shakyamuni is representing the Mahayana path, the Bodhicitta, that all of our inner practices, our inner motivations throughout our day should be motivated by great compassion and love. Renunciation going with Bodhicitta. And now we just have the divine couple, Vajra and Vajradhatushvari. So now then they become the synthesis of all this. They represent finally the tantric path, path of wisdom realizing emptiness mixed with great bliss. So ultimately, the mental factor of great bliss, our most subtle mind of clear light, meditating, realizing emptiness, those two going together, great bliss and emptiness. Ultimately being the cure for all suffering in life, including old age, sickness, and death. And that's our secret Dharma practice that we do, basically the hidden meaning of our life, the inner kernel of it's the chocolate in the, you've got that sort of like one of these fancy chocolates with the cherry in the middle. That's the you know, whatever, that's Tantra. It's represented by Vajra and Vajradhatushvari. There's a little cherry in the middle of the chocolate here. Now they get really, really small, about the size of a sunflower seed. If you could visualize here, you can make it a mustard seed or sesame seed, make it even smaller than that if you want. And they mean out of pure energy, so they come down to the crown of our head, almost like a leaf falling, enter our central channel. Just in front of our spine, slowly descend to our heart and absorb directly into our heart. Again, like I say, dropping a sugar cube into a hot cup or a hot mug of water instantly dissolves. Same thing here, just feel that their mind and our mind are completely one, because on an ultimate level they are, Dharmakaya mind. And all that wisdom, compassion, and power all go directly into us. And feel great, great bliss, joy, and spaciousness. We meditate on this for a moment. Okay, so just sort of staying in sort of a softer meditative state here. Just going to have a kind of tiny bit of teachings for the last few minutes on the first page here. Okay, so we're just going to talk a little bit for the next few weeks on the idea of the three principal paths. And Rinpoche had been teaching on that on New Year's Day. I thought that was very auspicious to start the day with that. So when we say the three principal paths, this is taught by Tsongkhapa, you could sort of argue in a lot of ways that the LamRim teachings are basically that. The three scopes can be sort of distilled into the three principal paths of Buddhism, that all Buddhist teachings in a lot of ways, the full corpus, you could say, taught by Buddha, you can sort of distill down into three main things, which are the three principal paths. What are the principal paths, or what does path mean in this sense? It's basically an attitude or a state of mind that will make you a Buddha. So when we talk about three principal paths, these are the attitudes or states of mind that will make you a Buddha. So first one, which is renunciation. The main definition of renunciation in this sense is disgust with worldly life. So that's a hard word for people to sort of take nowadays. We don't like using these kinds of things, disgust with worldly life, because we love life. We love the world, we love other people. So why understand this term in terms of renunciation being disgusted with world life? Well, what we're disgusted with in this specific sense are the true causes of suffering, or the worldly attitudes that bring about suffering in our lives. So we'll get a little bit more into that, a little more detail in the coming weeks. But as a general, just right now, just getting into your mind, the general definition of renunciation and disgust with worldly life. Second of the three principal paths being Bodhicitta, which is in Tibetan Jangchen, which is the mind of Buddha, or the wish to become Buddha to help others. So again, this is a definition we'll be exploring more and more to come. So bodhicitta is, of course, based on love. That ends up producing, remember from the LamRim teachings, that once we meditate on emptiness, I should say on equanimity, balanced mind, sort of warm, friendly, caring attitude towards others, where we don't have attachment or anger towards others, then we can sort of deploy our mind of love, which is in LamRim, if you can remember, that we have affectionate love, cherishing love, and wishing love. So in other words, we like people, we like sentient beings, we work on cherishing them, eventually seeing them all being like our children, we love them that much. And based on this cherishing attitude, we want them to be happy in life. Once we reach that point, if you remember, then it sort of progresses on the way to bodhicitta, that if we want beings to be happy, we have to see that they're not happy right now, that they're suffering so much. So this is where love instantly turns to compassion, where we wish to alleviate or take away their suffering. That great compassion and sense of wanting to take away suffering of all sentient beings sort of manifests again as superior intention, the idea that, well, someone has to work towards taking away the suffering of sentient beings. That someone please step forward, where I can't wait for anyone else to do it because I want this suffering to go away right now. So if anyone's going to do it, I guess it'll have to be me, so to speak. Like, I'm going to step forward and sort of volunteer myself based on my great compassion. I can't stand other people suffering anymore. I really want to help them. I want to care for them. So the best thing I can do is to become enlightened, where I can do that 24/7. I'll have no sort of hang-ups or problems or delusions. I can be absolute of service or care for all sentient beings. And that's the second principal path of bodhicitta. Principal path, I should say, of the three principal paths is bodhicitta. And finally, the third one, which is wisdom, realizing emptiness. So in Tibetan, this says yang dap dewa, or another way Geshe Michael has of translating the third principal path for wisdom is called accurate viewpoint. Accurate viewpoint. Or basically what he ended up saying is sort of like your worldview. So in a lot of ways, it's in the Nyingma tradition, they talk about this a lot, having the view. It's basically, what's your view? What's your view on things? Like in your day-to-day basis, when you get up, what is your view of the world? And you can see we all have different views, personal views, political views, ideological views. And you can see there can be sort of political viewpoints that people have. People are always this way. They vote this way, or they see things this way. Some people can have sort of personal ethical ways. They always try and see the best in people. Some people, let's say business, some kind of crooked business people, it's like, how do I, my worldview is that I'm always trying to take advantage of people. Like, where can I see the whole, where I can get something out of people, so to speak. So that's how we all have a personal viewpoint or worldview, you could say. So in this case, the third principal path is wisdom realizing emptiness will be our worldview, will be the worldly attitude that we have at all times. In the sense that worldly attitude, not like the samsaric, but in the sense that the viewpoint in our day-to-day lives, that is the view we will have, is the view of emptiness. So any good deed, in my notes here, I've got down, any good deed that you do with these three conditions will lead you to Buddhahood. So basically, whatever you do in life, if you can remember these three things as being part of your intention or motivation. So again, renunciation, bodhicitta, and most of all, the most important one, your worldview or your sort of viewpoint of emptiness. These things automatically are sort of projecting that the karma of those actions towards enlightenment. And then I have here, which is good, Geshe Michael says that when you put these three with moral discipline, we're in a sense that you are a sincere, ethical person. You try and be an honest and sincere, caring, and ethical person, disciplined person with decent Buddhist ethics. When that's sort of besides the three, that you could argue sort of part of the renunciation principal path, but basically when that's added to these three, Tantra will occur naturally to you, in the sense that the world will look more and more blissful, more and more pure, more and more good. And you can see this in the sense that applying these three things, if I'm renouncing the self-cherishing, that is the cause of all my suffering, with renunciation, renouncing my quote worldly attitude of selfishness, my motivation at all times is great compassion for all sentient beings, and my viewpoint, my worldview is emptiness, and I'm doing this with a very sincere and ethical point of view, then automatically things will start looking more and more good, more and more pure. You will see the best in people, you'll see the best in the world, because your mind's getting more and more pure. So even before you start practicing Tantra, generation completion stage practice, this energy is already being set up or structured around you. Okay, so then finally, the last little teaching of today is, where do we start? The most important thing is to start with renunciation. This is the first path, because you will never help others who are suffering unless you see that you are suffering. You have to think about renunciation daily, or you'll never get it. Since that the first thing we start with is renouncing true causes of suffering, renouncing samsara, renouncing our self-cherishing. We can't become enlightened, we can't think of helping others unless we see their suffering. We see the reason to become enlightened is to remove suffering. We can't do this unless we see how we are suffering. If we understand how we are suffering, what our suffering is, what samsara really is. This is the first motivation, is to work on renunciation. This is always, I know Rinpoche, just to conclude, has said that, a lot of times people want the Dharma to be all sort of bliss and rainbows, and that when you talk about suffering or renunciation, it's kind of like a bummer, and people don't want to hear that nowadays. And a lot of times in the West now, a lot of Dharma is more worldly Dharma, where it's just sort of a form of psychotherapy or self-help, where it's about making your worldly conditions easier or better for yourself and for others. More sort of at peace, more calm, more happy in your day-to-day life. But technically, all Buddhism starts with the renunciation, where you're renouncing worldly life, understood as the worldly attitudes of self-cherishing that produce suffering. So that's sort of, I guess, sort of the take-home teaching today, is to work. We're going to, as we sort of go along here, get clear more and more what suffering is. Basically, the Four Noble Truths, what samsara really is, and then what its true origins are, and how to turn those causes off. True cessation is basically, if the keys in the ignition, the car is going, you're idling outside the 7-Eleven, producing too much pollution. Whenever you turn the car off, click, turn the engine off. So true cessations is turning the true origins of suffering off. And the true paths are the instruction book on how to do that. And that's basically what the three principal paths are. is our understanding karma for renunciation. We'll understand our main motivation, bodhicitta, and wisdom, realizing emptiness, what puts it all together for us to get enlightened, to see the unity of karma and emptiness. So putting all that together, let's just have a wonderful dedication. Let's just try and put these teachings into practice as personal advice, try and live them as best we can. So we can see blessings of all Buddhas, holy beings, especially our root teacher in this life, all of our gurus. We can think of all wonderful tradition of Kadampa gurus from Atisha to Tsongkhapa, Pancha Lamas and Dalai Lamas, all the way down to Zasep Rinpoche, our teacher of this life, passing this on. And the Buddhas who are always with us at each moment, giving us blessings and direction. Truth of karma, cause and effects. Whatever we put out is what we get. And the power of a pure superior intention, power of our pure bodhicitta motivation. Everything we're doing here today on a wonderful Saturday morning together meditating is for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. By all this, may all sentient beings reach awakening. May all sentient beings get enlightened. Okay. So thank you very much. There we go. So, and I actually finished on time, right on the nose there, which is good. So that's how I'll do it. Like I say, I'm just, in terms of the teachings, I'm just going to get a little bit in the last 10, 15 minutes of every class. The rest is just going to be meditation. So we can just try and make sure that those teachings kind of go in a sort of deep, sort of yogic way. So it's just not me, blah, 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 reading books and whatever. So that's kind of the format that we'll be doing. So we're going to be taking our time with this. So we'll be doing a little bit more on 3 principal paths next week. So any questions before I end, or it's all good? And again, if you have a question, just you can text or email me, or we can even do it. You can bring up the question at the end of class next week if you like. So. Okay. There we go. Okay, lots of love. Thanks for coming, guys. And we'll see you next time, okay? Everyone be safe and take care.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matthew.
Okay, bye.
Bye.